Today I have an iPhone 11 that has been through a rough time. The back glass is utterly destroyed and has what may or may not be some blood on it. It could also be ketchup, but I didn't run the taste test. Today we'll just be replacing the display. If you want to see a back glass housing replacement, check out the one I did recently on an iPhone 11 Pro Max. Before we get too deep into this, I want to extend a huge thank you to all 500 subscribers my channel has gained. The comments and questions you all have left me are what inspires me to keep making these videos. I hope many of them can serve as a guide for people training to be repair technicians, or just people who want to fix their own device. So far, 500 of you seem pretty interested, and I'm definitely going to keep going, even if this battery won't explode. Thank you so much for your support. Now back to business. We've got two nail-like pentalobe to remove from the bottom. I think the screen would still open regardless with how shattered it is. Running a thin metal pry tool around the edges will cut through the adhesive holding it down. The frames on these displays are thicker plastic than older iPhones. With everything cut, this phone opens like a backwards book. Tightening up the shot, you can see 5 standard-sized tri-wings holding in the main shield. The battery shield is under the display ribbons. Contrary to popular belief, the battery can be accessed before removing the display ribbons, but it doesn't much matter at this stage. Starting with the digitizer ribbon, then the LCD connector. I'll also disconnect the ear speaker and proximity sensor ribbon off to the left. The battery has a backwards L-shaped shield holding it and the charging port connector in place. 3 more standard sized tri-wings get removed, and we finally have access to that battery. As you're probably aware, disconnecting the battery is pretty important. At the top of the screen, we've got 4 screws to remove, a single tiny tri-wing, and 3 Phillips heads. Keeping things consistent, or even standard, is truly a challenge for Apple engineers. They'll figure it out one day, maybe. For some reason, Apple really liked the useless aluminum clip on the iPhone XR so much that they even put it on this iPhone 11, which, for what it's worth, is just an iPhone XR with an extra camera anyway. After some heating from the front of the screen, the overzealous adhesive holding the components in is weak enough to safely start prying them up and out of their little brackets. Slow and steady wins the race here. I've got the assembly lined up and pressed into the new display panel here at the top, and I'll even be so nice as to replace the questionable aluminum clip at the top. Again, it makes no difference. A single tri-wing screw in the top left, followed by 3 Phillips, will keep this firmly stuck to the panel. Going in for testing now, I'll reconnect the super long proximity and ear speaker ribbon. Why Apple made it so long in this iPhone, yet so short on the iPhone 12 is something I probably will never understand. The battery gets reconnected before the display. Just make sure you don't accidentally power it on before you get the display and touch sensing ribbons reattached. This one is up and running well, despite not looking so great on the outside. I'll get it powered off and move on to a step that was requested by one of my viewers, David Schulman: frame adhesive. I always replace the adhesive, but I rarely show it on camera because lining it up doesn't always go super well, and sometimes I have to do several takes to get it just right. It needs to be lined up pretty perfectly in the frame. Even though this phone will never be water or dust resistant again thanks to the gaping holes in the back glass, it's a good habit to get into when repairing or refurbishing devices. With everything looking pretty good, it's time to reconnect the display for a final time. I'll start with reconnecting the battery and putting down the L-shaped shield, along with those 3 tri-wings. I think it's really cool that at least 500 people are interested in seeing me take tiny screws out, only to put them right back in. Display, touch, and proximity ribbons are all clipped back on the board like tiny Legos. The big shield can now be lined up over the posts on the board, and those 5 tri-wing screws can be tightened back down. The screen is pressed back into the frame firmly, pressing all the sides to make sure the adhesive makes a good bond. I've seen some shops go as far as putting the phone in a vacuum sealer to get that really factory-like seal. 2 pentalobes go in at the bottom, and this phone will be ready to use again. I'd definitely advise a case on it, not just to prevent further damage, but also to save your fingers from some seriously sharp glass. Thank you so much for joining me. If you like this content and would like to see more, please consider subscribing. I'm trying to get at least 1 video out per week, and always try to select the most interesting repairs to share with you. I'll see you next time. Until then, drop a comment below.